This dystopian imagery seems closer to me than it ever has before. So why are people so afraid to admit that?
Well, almost every development in the country or culture or society, it pretty much has the same goal, which is allow the people in power to obtain more power so you can't restrict any control they have. That's how all this works. You mentioned Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a Trojan horse for a very radical
Yeah,
agenda. At
couldn't agree
most,
more.
what he is somebody who the very powerful elites. Now, I know all of a sudden he's anti elite as of earlier this week, but
Yeah.
those are the people who control him. They're the people who instilled him. They're the people who made it where nobody could challenge him early in the primaries this year.
Welcome to the Michele Tafoya podcast.
So Bobby Burack was one of Clay Travis's first hires at Outkick, which is a platform that Fox News eventually purchased. And it's not just sports, it's politics, it's culture, it's a lot of stuff. They have some terrific writers, and Bobby is one of them. And you're going to hear from him. He did a really interesting deep dive into AI and how three evil AI creators are going after, they're going to suck up the power grid. And we better get ready to have an alternative to some of the power needs in this country. We're also going to talk Joe Biden and how the liberal media is acting so surprised about Biden's deterioration. Also about late night television and how you, the individual, have more power over a lot of stuff than maybe you realize. You're going to want to listen in for that. He is Bobby Burack. He joins us in a moment. First, economists are warning massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA and 401k accounts as the stock market braces for impact. With inflation on the rise, yes, it's still on the rise, and global uncertainty looming, it's clear why central banks and savvy Americans are turning to gold. In times like this, Proverbs 21:20 reminds us to preserve what we've built. Right now, that wisdom points us toward gold. If you haven't had your eye on gold, time to make it a priority. I urge you to call my friends at Priority Gold to find out how they can help you diversify your savings with physical gold and silver. Call 1-800-405-GOLD or visit prioritygold.com/golden for a free gold info guide. Plus, see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is still golden. Call 1-800-405-GOLD to speak with a gold specialist or visit prioritygold.com/golden to learn more. That's 1-800-405-GOLD. Bobby Burack, writer for Outkick, is next. Bobby, it's great to see you. Welcome for your first appearance on the Michele Tafoya podcast. I appreciate it.
Michele, happy to be here. I've enjoyed watching you over the past few years, and yeah, it's good to be here.
People think of Outkick some people think of it as a sports platform, but you guys cover so much culture, sports, politics, a ton of stuff. And you in particular have struck me as someone who's really, you branch out in all kinds of directions. And one of your recent articles that really caught my attention, and I've seen others writing about it, is this insatiable quest or quench thirst, this need for power for AI. We think of AI and we think, wow, this is a great new addition to all kinds of technology, but we don't take into account, the average person, how much power it requires, how much of our power grid it's going to need. And so a lot of the people who are promoting AI are the same people that are saying, we've got to take care of the climate. We've got to take care of all that, the green energy, yada, yada. But they need the regular fossil fuels to run this stuff. What's your overall view of this particular issue?
First of all, I appreciate that introduction there. This story to me has been something that I've tracked for a while. And just a little background. Usually when I start writing these stories, I don't really know in which direction I'm going to go. I look at a story and I start researching it. And this one was, we've seen the reports about how much energy AI is sucking up, and it's horrific. These data centers in Silicon Valley that power AI are using as much electricity, Michelle, as entire countries. These data centers use more energy than Japan, the Netherlands, Ireland. So it's certainly not sustainable. It's already exhausting our power grid. They're only using and demanding more energy. So my first takeaway was, well, why is nobody talking about this? You have all these climate cultists who are vandalizing the Stonehenge, spraying down private planes, telling us to turn down our air conditioning.
Throwing soup at the Mona Lisa.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my initial approach. Why are the people who supposedly want to save energy so silent on AI? And the deeper I researched, the darker it was, to use a word. The three people who are behind this push for AI are Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates. They are spending tens of millions of dollars on lobbying each year to get politicians to not regulate how much AI energy is required. So what you have here is the greediest oligarchs in America tethering their futures to AI. And you would say, well, what does that mean? Isn't AI good? Not really. We focus a lot on the two letters AI, but what this actually leads to, upon my research, is a program called AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. And what that is it's designed to create smarter than human intelligence, which includes sex robots, automated teachers, replacing of federal workers. And this is what stunned me the most. There is such a rat race to create the most sophisticated form of AGI that we are not stopping and researching the consequences. By 2030, some of these robots are going to be launched into society, and we are ill-equipped to defend them from what they could potentially do. That, to me, is the most dystopian vision we have had in this country in the past few generations.
It reminds me of movies they used to make about stuff like this, about tech taking over our lives. Why do you suppose this is being ignored?
Money. The people behind AI are those three tech tyrants we just talked about, and it's also the politicians who are making money via lobbying by these tech tyrants. So what you have here is tech people and political leaders benefiting from the future of AI. And those two groups are those who radicalize and fund the climate cultists, which I found so fascinating is Bill Gates is donating a lot of money to these stop oil groups, these preserve energy groups, all the while he's the one who's actually threatening the climate. So put simply, the radical climate activists we see all over video, these are not particularly intelligent people. They're pawns for political and tech leaders, both of whom need AI to remain in power and obtain even more power over the next generation.
You know, it is a dystopian view, and so therefore, I think that so many people, no, that's, that would never happen. Well, we're on the cusp of it. I keep saying I'm a huge history buff, and I feel like we're living through a really critical time in history right now.
Yes.
We've got a presidential candidate in Joe Biden, a sitting president, who doesn't seem to know what's going on, no matter how much he protests. And so that, to me, is a massive national security threat, massive. And we have people who want to support him simply because, not because of his policies or that he can do good things. Look, he's not going to get any younger tomorrow or the next day or the next day, only the opposite. But they see him as the answer to Trump, the only answer to keeping Trump out of the White House. And so they're willing to forego all the things that they're just willing to overlook all the weaknesses. So this is dystopian to me, that they would rather have a semi-comatic, if that's a word, a guy who seems to be in a coma most of the time, running as the leader of the free world. Well, as long as he's surrounded by people. But no, that's not what we voted for. So anyway, this dystopian imagery seems closer to me than it ever has before. So why are people so afraid to admit that?
Well, almost every development in the country or culture or society, it pretty much has the same goal, which is allow the people in power to obtain more power so you can't restrict any control they have. That's how all this works. You mentioned Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a Trojan horse for a very radical agenda. At most, what he is somebody who the very powerful elites, now I know all of a sudden he's anti-elite as of earlier this week, but those are the people who control him. They're the people who instilled him. They're the people who made it where nobody could challenge him early in the primaries this year. So AI is the same thing. The culture war is the same thing. I've covered things like the race card and transgenderism. All these concepts are ways for very rich and powerful people to allow themselves to have these pawns, these puppets that make them more powerful. And what strikes me about AI is if you just sit back and look forward, what's going on? It's going to replace jobs. These sex robots are designed to replace relationships. There is currently funding and development for artificial wombs. We are trying to create police officers and military equipment based on AI. How exactly does this benefit the little people? It doesn't benefit us at all. It's going to take our jobs, but more importantly, make us more replaceable because these AI robots are more powerful and subservient than any man can ever be. So it makes total sense that politicians are totally behind this because if they weaken us, as a result, they become more powerful.
You know, you use that term, we the little people.
Yeah.
I would really like for people to stop thinking of themselves as little. And I get what you're saying there, but we're supposed to be the ones running this joint, you know, and we do it through our elected representatives. But people, the bigger the government, the smaller the individual. And if you keep giving the government more of your tax dollars and more power to create these policies that weaken you or that make you dependent upon them, the smaller you become.
Yeah, I'm with you. When I say little people, that's how they look at us.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I had a column last year about this time with the thesis that the minority controls the messaging, but the majority, which is us, not the elites, control the results. Look what happened in 2023. It was the working man and woman who destroyed Bud Light, Disney, Starbucks, Target. So at the end of the day, we are told to believe that we're powerless, that this is not our country, but it's not true. Because at the end of the day, we empower those above us through our votes, our transactions, our boycotts, and our actions. If we stop going to see Disney movies, Disney cannot remain as profitable. We saw what happened to Bud Light. If we stop voting for these politicians, they can't run our country. So while we're meant to believe that we are just along for the ride, at the end of the day, this is still our country, as hard as that is to realize.
At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred, and that is free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every other freedom that we cherish. But in today's digital age, discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives. And that leaves a lot of you feeling voiceless in conversations crucial to our financial independence and security. This is where Wealth Protection Research steps in, armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. They are defenders of free speech, committed to giving a voice to the silenced. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 election wealth protection report. This free report highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't touch, and listeners like you can get it completely free by texting the word ideas to 76626, and that's ideas plural. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act right now. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 election protection report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment does not think you can handle, and to take control of our financial destinies. Text IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy now. Let's talk about the election. Joe Biden's awful debate. So many people acted shocked, Bobby.
Yeah.
I wasn't particularly shocked. I was surprised that he wasn't as jacked up as he had been for the State of the Union address. And no cold and no jet lag from 12 days prior can convince me that that's responsible for his lackluster performance. What we saw was a man who, untethered to a teleprompter for 90 minutes, is incapable of keeping a train of thought, completing sentences, and arguing cogently and coherently. So I keep thinking, who the hell's been running the country? And if you're asked that, what's your initial response? Who is running things?
The two most powerful people in the Democrat Party, I think by miles, are Barack Obama and Ron Klain, and probably third, Suzanne Rice. Those are the people who I've always thought have been running this country. Biden, again, I think he's a face for this presidency. He's not making a lot of decisions. But I'm with you. When I watched that debate, it wasn't that surprising to me. We've seen this for 3.5 years.
We've seen it, yeah.
He can't speak coherently, barely walk. He always looks dazed and looking up at the ceiling for answers that don't exist. But my takeaway, and I put this on social media just like you, okay, this confirms not only is Biden incompetent, he's not the one running this country. He's not the one deciding to pull our troops out of Afghanistan and open this border. But I've always gone back to Obama and Ron Klain. But here's what I think should be the headline today. And the story's not getting enough attention. Any book about Barack Obama talks about how close he is to David Axelrod. David Axelrod was essentially the architect of Obama's presidency in two campaigns. Whenever you want to know what Obama's thinking, listen to David Axelrod. He's his mouthpiece. Earlier this week, Axelrod went on CNN and said, Biden cannot win the election. Mm-hmm. To me, that is significant because that means Barack Obama no longer believes Biden can win the election. And when he loses Obama, which I believe is the direction in which we're heading, I don't see how he can remain on the ticket because this party has never been loyal to Biden. I take you back to 2020 during the primaries. The party wanted Kamala Harris won, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg. They didn't rally behind Biden until it was down to he and Bernie Sanders. So this party has always been ready to kick him to the curb as soon as it is advantageous to do so. I think right now, if Obama believes it's advantageous to do so, they'll do it.
And, it's not the first time David Axelrod has sent warning flares to the Democrats. He has appeared many times saying, you can't go about it this way. You got to get this identity politics out of here. You got to do. So he has made pronouncements before in sort of, warning the Democrats how and how not to run this campaign. But to come out and say Biden can't win, that you're right. That is a very strong statement. But for Biden to be running the White House, if you suggest that Obama is really the one kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes through Ron Klain, however, Susan Rice, however the chain of command works, logistically, how do you think that's working? Because I keep thinking this through and I want to think clearly and logically about it. Yeah. So logistically, are you suggesting that Obama is picking up the phone, the red line, whatever it is, to Klain and saying, we've got to do X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I think it starts with that. I think Klain is talking to Biden's advisors. And I think Biden's advisors tell him what to do, and he mostly does it. I think it does start with Obama, but somewhat Ron Klain, right? I think even if you go to Obama's presidency, while he was very powerful in making the decisions, he did lean on people like Klain and sometimes even Axelrod. So it probably does stem from those three to some degree. But yeah, I would say at the end of the day, Obama remains the most powerful person in the Democrat Party. I know there was that NBC report that Jill Biden has become more influential, which is shades of Nancy Reagan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say logistically, it starts with Obama, goes to Klain, goes to Biden's advisors, and ultimately Biden.
It would be a remarkable thing if that could actually be proven. I wish, the history books are going to be fascinating. I hope I live long enough to see some of them. Hey, let me tell you about my friends at besthotgrill.com who make the amazing Solaire infrared gas grills. Declare your independence from the low heat, low powered gas grills, which in the course of grilling events wear out every couple of years. Secure your rights to juicy steaks, succulent chicken, and moist fish, as well as healthy grilled veggies and perfect finishing of sous vide. Pursue grilling happiness with the purchase of a USA-made hot, fast Solaire infrared gas grill. Solaire is perfect for today's busy lifestyles, securing its powers from the efficient direct heat of the Solaire infrared burner, which reaches 1,000 degrees in just 3 minutes to lock in the juices and flavor and grill food faster. And celebrate the freedom of a grill that will consistently produce better than restaurant quality food in your own backyard. All stainless steel and welded construction. It is self-evident that Solaire could be the last grill you'll ever buy. Make grilling great again with Solaire infrared grills. Learn more about these amazing USA-made grills at besthotgrill.com. That's besthotgrill.com. Solaire hot fast grills at besthotgrill.com. All right, so it is interesting to watch how the media is responding to all of this, Bobby. I think that you and I are aligned on this. The media has largely been liberal from time immemorial, right? The mass media, since radio and television found out how powerful they actually were. So the late night hosts, you noted in a recent comment, I think you said are 94% liberal. Expand on that. How was that decided or determined?
So, Newsbusters, which is MRC's website, which is a nonprofit conservative watchdog, they calculated every guest that's appeared on late night since last October, after the writer's strike. And they found that 94% of guests in that time frame were considered liberal, several of which were hyper-partisan as far as being members of the Democrat Party. And that study surveyed guests on Jimmy Kimmel's show, Colbert, Fallon, Seth Meyers, and The Daily Show. So what you have here is pretty clearly an entire genre saying, we don't care about the other half of the country. Mm-hmm. And I did some more research on this, looking at the data. This trend really started in 2016. Now, late night probably always leaned to the left, but it didn't lean so profoundly to the left until 2016 when Donald Trump became the president. Yeah. And also in that time span, the late night shows, the top 5 on ABC, CBS, and NBC, get this, have lost 60% of their ad revenue. So this goes back to a previous conversation we just had, in that the silent majority still controls this country. When you ignore them and tell them they don't matter, they stop consuming your project, which in result means you're going to make less money. Now all of a sudden there are serious questions whether late night is a viable business, because some of these shows, according to the Los Angeles Times, are losing tens of millions of dollars per year.
It doesn't surprise me. They've got to be expensive. Just the salaries of the hosts themselves are very, very high to keep, if you want Jimmy Fallon to be the face of NBC late night, you're going to pay him as such. But if the revenues drop, then yeah, you are going to lose money. They also spend a ton on, ancillary things like the green room and the guest limousines and all the stuff that they have to do. So meanwhile, you've got Greg Gutfeld. And he's no longer necessarily late night. He's 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 Central, but not liberal. Occasionally we'll have on a guest who, well, Kat Timpf is libertarian, and you'll have guests who are maybe mildly liberal, not illiberal, certainly not
Right.
what people call woke.
Right.
And how has that show fared in comparison, or can we tell?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The time slots are different, particularly now. He's airing at 10 p.m. following Sean Hannity, a very highly rated show, where the other late night shows are following local news starting at about 11:45. So it's not apples to apples. I won't pretend it is. But Gutfeld is doing very well. I believe most nights he is the fourth highest rated show on cable news behind the five Jesse Waters, Primetime, and Hannity, which puts Gutfeld at about 2.2 million viewers a night. These other late night shows, I think Colbert averages about 1.2 million, Kimmel and Fallon around 800,000. So
Wow.
Gutfeld, as far as reach, is far exceeding them. I mean, it's not even close.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
It is remarkable. And I can see why people on that side try to ignore Greg Gutfeld's show. They try to act like it isn't there. And it's there. And it's remarkable because, like you said, people have the power to sway the media landscape. They have more power than they realize, but you're seeing it before your very eyes. It's fascinating too how the media has responded to the debate. And we talked about this earlier, how neither you or I were shocked necessarily, just a little bit maybe, wow, how did he not come out with that same medicinal injection that he had before the State of the Union or whatever? I'm half joking there, Bobby, but you know what I'm saying. It was amazing. And since then, now you've got the White House press corps, you've got all the pundits on the various networks saying, we didn't know, we feel we've been lied to. The wool was pulled over our eyes. How can that possibly be, Bobby? How can they say that with a straight face?
Well, they're lying to us. They've lied to us for a very, very long time. They're lying more to us now because they're desperate. They knew, Michelle, you and I knew. All you do is watch a video of Joe Biden. To say that they were surprised by it makes absolutely no sense. What they're stunned about is that they realize they can no longer suppress Biden's very cognitive decline. I might write a column on this. I think it's a really fascinating idea. In 2020, Biden's team kept him out of the picture. You know, we say he's stuck in his basement.
Yeah, the basement campaign. Yeah.
Yeah, they suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story. You have reports from the House Judiciary Committee that they were in constant contact with Facebook and Twitter to take down information. Biden won, if you will, by saying nothing, just being hidden. They can't do that this time. Biden right now is front and center. And that's a really damning proposition for him. You're seeing Donald Trump for the first time in his life. Just sit back and watch Biden self-destruct.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very hard for Biden to turn this campaign around. Now, I understand there is a large demographic that hates Donald Trump and will not vote for him no matter what. But here's my prediction. I'm going to make it right now. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see lower voter turnout in November. So the people who voted for Biden in 2020, who are disgruntled and fed up with him, they're not going to go vote for Donald Trump. They're just not going to vote, which is ultimately going to hurt Joe Biden, particularly in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, which more than likely are going to decide the election.
It's a really interesting proposition. At the same time, I'll mention two anecdotal things.
Okay.
I have a relative. She's in her early 70s. Mm-hmm. She didn't vote in 2020 because she just couldn't. She couldn't vote for either. This time, she is planning to vote for Donald Trump because she is so disheartened by what the Biden administration has done to this country. Second anecdote, a 24-year-old Black female recently told me, if I had to choose, if someone made me say today, I would probably vote for Trump, even though I haven't before, because I think on foreign policy, he's going to probably keep us safer. So these are two very different human beings from two very different backgrounds. But whereas I would have expected both of them to say, I'm staying home this year. I don't care. And I have heard people say that. I'm not sure I totally believe it. I think that there are probably people who really do want to feel safer and more secure. And they probably deep down believe that that safety and security will be provided through a Trump administration. They're going to not say it publicly, but they might go pull the lever for Trump.
Yeah, I've heard people say the same thing. And this is why, and look, I take no joy in saying this, why I do think Kamala Harris would perform better than Biden. Kamala Harris is a very unpopular politician. She's always been. In a lot of ways, she's this lifelong DEI hire. I know nobody's allowed to say it, but it's absolutely true. So I don't really care if we're allowed to or not. But you and I follow sports. There is this phenomenon where when your head coach is really bad and they fire the head coach, no matter who the interim is, the team usually rallies behind them for the next couple of weeks, no matter how good that coach is.
Yeah.
So I think if Biden were to step down and Kamala Harris were to take his spot, people would be, or Democrats rather, would be rejuvenated because it's not Biden.
Yeah.
Now, would they like Harris come next year at this time? Probably not, but I do think that she would re-energize the base and probably pick up some votes from people who might rather say, hey, I'll just stay home. So I do think Kamala Harris is a bigger threat to Donald Trump than Joe Biden at this point.
Do you think she can beat Donald Trump?
I think she's a better chance than Biden. I would still lean Trump. I put together my electoral map pre-debate. I'm working on my second one. I had it close between Biden and Trump. Post-debate, the one state I'm changing is Michigan, which gives Trump a bit of a sturdier lead, but still pretty narrow given how things could shake out. I would probably keep my states as is with Kamala Harris, which would still put Donald Trump in the 290 range as far as electoral votes. So I'd say no, I don't think she will beat Donald Trump, but I'm also not going to be naive and say this race is over. It's only July. I expect there to be a lot of media tech manipulation, some October surprises. I still don't fully trust the whole structure of all this voting stuff. So I'm not saying that Donald Trump is the prohibitive favorite, but I believe he enters November as a 60% favorite, whether it's Biden or Harris.
You know, at the very heart of our democracy lies free speech, a principle we hold sacred. Free speech is the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish. But here we are in a digital age where discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our futures are being silenced or even overshadowed in mainstream narratives. And I know that leaves a lot of people feeling voiceless in these conversations that are really important to our financial independence and security. And this is where wealth protection research steps in, armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research isn't a financial advisory firm. They're actually defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts, and these are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the upcoming 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report. This is a free report. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money as we head into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't touch, and listeners can get it completely free by texting the word ideas to 76626. If you believe, as I do, in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act right now. Text ideas, IDEAS, to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 Election Protection Report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment doesn't think you can handle, but you can, and to take control of our financial destinies. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy now. Final thing for you, we've got the Republican National Convention coming up in Milwaukee. We believe that at that time, if not sooner, but the vice presidential candidate will be named by Donald Trump, who his running mate would be. How do you see that? There's a lot of story. I don't know if that's grammatically correct, Bobby, but I don't care. There's a lot of hinting that Doug Burgum, the governor of North Dakota, would be the one. To me, he seems kind of like a boring sort of candidate. I still wonder if the Nikki Haley thing is so quiet that might be a massive surprise. But I don't know that people can keep it that secret for this long if that is in fact going on behind the scenes. There's talk about Marco Rubio. What do you think would work best for Trump?
Okay, so there's a couple of thoughts here. I do not like Nikki Haley. I think these neocons are as big of a threat to us as Democrats. I despise Haley and Lindsey
Ooh.
Graham, that type. However, Nikki Haley is very popular among independent women.
Mhm.
If you're just talking about winning the election, Nikki Haley would give Donald Trump the best chance because he still struggles among suburban women, and Haley would help him pick up that demographic. Now, he doesn't like her, so I don't see it happening.
Okay.
Burgum is interesting because, like you said, he's boring, but that makes him appealing because with Donald Trump leading in the polls, it's best for him to lay low, not create a lot of news, and Burgum would help him do that. He would stay out of the public. He wouldn't make much noise. Now, there's two other people who we keep hearing, Marco Rubio and JD Vance. Vance is my favorite among the options. I thought he was very impressive on Meet the Press. He's a fighter. He's somebody who I hope is a potential presidential nominee in the coming elections. But Marco Rubio, if I had to guess, I lean towards him. For one, that Hispanic vote is so impactful. We always talk about the black vote.
Mhm.
The Hispanic vote is far larger. And if Rubio can help Trump in that category, that gives him an edge over someone like Burgum or Vance. Bill O'Reilly, who's been close to Trump's team for a long time, he reported last night his sources are telling him Trump is leaning towards Marco Rubio. If I was a betting man, I would say Rubio should be my bet. But if I'm Trump, I would really consider Burgum because of those reasons we just discussed.
Well, I think Marco Rubio could be just as quote unquote boring on some levels as Burgum. But
Yeah.
I think you're right about the Hispanic aspect. He can go speak Spanish
Right.
in circles around anybody and appeal to those voters. And I have always been a fan of Marco Rubio. Always. I think he has a level head. I think he has commander-in-chief potential. I think he's really smart. And also I believe that he genuinely loves the country and wants what's best for the country. So that I would not be disappointed at all with Marco Rubio. We're going to see. He's certainly more in the picture than he was, say, 2 weeks ago. Bobby, it's great to finally have you on the podcast. I tell everyone at the end of each podcast to be brave and do good. What's the bravest thing you've ever done?
Bravest thing I ever done. Well, that's a good one. Team up with Clay Travis. No regrets. But when I joined him, I was the first person he hired at that time. A lot of media people, they're like, "What are you doing? Your career is over. You can't work with him. He's racist. He's bigoted. He's sexist."
Oh,
that was, pretty brave. But I think it worked out pretty well.
It's worked out great, Bobby. And then when I say do good, for me, there's a difference between saying do well and do good. Some people have said, no, you're grammatically incorrect. It's do well. That's not what I'm talking about. You can do well on a test.
Right.
You can do well at your job. I'm talking about do good, doing good for other people.
Yeah.
Just that throwing the rock and having the ripples in the pond by just throwing the rock. So when you think of doing good, how would you like people to do good in the world?
Being kind when you meet people, because we don't know what other people are going through at all. I was on a train the other day, not to go on a long ride or a long tangent, but I was talking to this guy and I didn't know anything about him, and realized he told me he had tumors in his brain and very serious condition. You would have no idea by talking to him. So maybe you see someone like that and you're rude to them, but you don't know what they're going through. So by talking to them and making them feel important, that really changes their entire day. And someone like him who doesn't have a lot of days left, that seemed to mean the world to him. So be kind to people. Treat them like you want to be treated, to use the old cliche. Just be a good person. Try your best. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's kind all the time. But when you try to be, I believe good things eventually come your way.
Love it. He is Bobby Burack, and he is at Outkick, and you should read him. Just read him. Follow him on Twitter or X and the whole bit. Bobby, it's great to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Like I said, be brave, do good, and we will see you next time.